Northwest. You know, this is the podcast from the birthplace of geocaching right here in the great Pacific Northwest. Now, it's Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific, and I'm Chris of the Northwest, and we're going to talk about geocaches and geocachers from here and all around the globe. So while you're trying to figure out why there's olive oil in your coffee, we'll be caching in the Northwest.
If you live in East Palestine, Ohio, there's lots of stuff in your coffee.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah. So, hey, yes, and welcome to episode 501. If it's your first time joining us, welcome. We've got 500 shows for you to catch up on, but we're just going to talk tonight about DNFs with rock chalk. So welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. It's always nice to be with you guys. I wasn't at all offended that I wasn't invited to the 500th show, and that you chose Brian over me. That's fine. And I won't be holding a grudge about that at all.
It was a public event, and you could have attended.
I expected an engraved invitation from Land Monkey, and it never arrived.
Well, and it was on Land Monkey's to-do list, not ours. So
does not surprise me.
Blame can be placed squarely on Land Monkey's shoulders.
I think it's just important for everybody to know where they stand in the pecking order.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I'm just trying to do favors for people. I don't know.
Well, we had a nice show. Thank you for joining us.
It's good to be put in your place occasionally and to just kind of not get too big of a head, especially when it looks like this.
And welcome to the after show already. Here we go. No. Well, hey.
I was supposed to save my best stuff for later. Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure you got lots of material left.
It's been a while. You guys haven't had me on. It's like I've just been keeping notes and stuff I want to talk about.
First time this year.
Got a lot of grievances to bring up with you people.
That's right.
That's in the after show, the airing of grievances.
We'll be airing the grievances later.
I'll save that for later then.
Live audience, you feel free to share your grievances in the chat anytime you like, and put some hashtags in there that Chris will tell you about later. But first, he's already been active here, but we got to bring in our lost lemur. Some say he only blooms on the eve of a blood moon. And others say he will answer your questions after consulting his magic 8-ball. All we know is he's called Land Monkey.
Hey, good to be back. It's a Thursday evening. Nice to be back with my good friends and Rock Chalk.
And so it continues.
Hey, you know what, though? Before we keep going with all of that material, quick reminder that we do appreciate the support of all of our patrons, and because you all help to keep this podcast coming each and every week. Even if we don't have Rock Chalk on each and every week, you all still keep supporting us, and we appreciate that. And a special thanks to our corporate Dalai Lama supporters. That would be Land Sharks, and, of course, Gold Country Geotourism. Well, hey, visit Explore Gold Country. That's exploregoldcountry.com. Check out the 2 geotours. In fact, you could just go on to geocaching.com and down on that geotours tab or on the app, and you'll find both the Gold Country geotours there as well. And while we're speaking about apps, don't forget to download the Gold Country app as well. Get all that info. And of course, at our good friends Land Sharks, they are always having great quality products for your geocaching experiences to check out on their online store. So check that out at landsharkz.ca.
Is that Gold Country behind you, Jay?
That, you know what? It looks like Gold Country, but that actually is not Gold Country. That is Tri-Cities. That's Jim's.
That's what I thought it was. And then I thought, surely he would have Gold Country behind him when he's talking about Gold Country, but...
I used to, and the thing is, it looks so similar that most people don't notice the difference, and most people don't call me out on it. So,
well,
I guess
get ready, dude, because you've got about an hour of being called out on stuff here. So, you pick a fight with me, I'm coming with both barrels. So,
well, then you'll be well equipped for Gold Country.
If you're going to have attention to detail on your show, you should have Gold Country behind you. And now you're just switching back to see these other guys. They're in their studio. I mean, now I see why you're using the background.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, Gold Country. If you're if you're talking about Land Sharks, have a shot of their store. I'm
Well,
just trying to help you here.
I appreciate the feedback. It's very constructive.
You're welcome.
I like in the show notes where it says here for Chris and I just kind of sit back and let Land Monkey and Rock Chalk carry the show.
Look what Chris is doing here. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
On the fly, he's on it.
There you go.
And
Well, that's because he's got a webcam in their store.
With the stream behind. What's this?
How's
what
that?
is that?
Is that better?
That's
Now you're just kissing up.
sure. Perfect.
That's
See, what's this
geocaching.
behind you now, Jay? Is this is just any stream in the Northwest, or is this a particular?
No, it's a particular stream, but I don't really feel like telling you where it is.
But
right
it's not
now.
related to a sponsor.
No, because I'm done talking about the
Dude.
sponsors.
I'm telling you, you're missing out.
You know what
I'm
you
sorry.
guys should miss out on is hashtags. You can use hashtag DNF to talk about something you want to mention about DNFs tonight, our main show's topic. You can also use the hashtag PATAS to bring up something in the after show where we will have the airing of grievances. You can also use hashtag podcast baking to tell us what you're cooking tonight or what you've started cooking tonight, and you may continue in a little bit.
Mhm.
And you can use the final hashtag podcast drinking to tell us what you're sipping. Look at Wit's End or what he's chugging there. Wit's
I'm
End is
done,
chugging.
Just water. Just water.
Oh, now Land Monkey would like to tell you some more.
Let's go to
He's Googling pictures of Gold Country now so he can slide him into his background. That's what he's doing.
Hey, you know what? So while certain people have been busy nitpicking the quality that I bring to this podcast and all the work that I put into this podcast every week, I got an email from a previous guest that was of a very positive and constructive quality. So we had a message from Geocache Alaska, and they want to let us know that they have coins for their Geo Trail, which is going to launch just south of Anchorage, Alaska on June 3rd. And I don't have any pictures of Anchorage, Alaska. I didn't come quite that prepared. However, cachers who find at least 20 of the 23 caches can purchase the coin, and any cacher who finds all 23 will get a free path tag. They also wanted to let us know about a trackable race, and this sounds really fun. So us podcast hosts and any of our listeners and even Rock Chalk are invited, if they would like to participate, to send trackables to Alaska for the Geocache Alaska Iditarod themed trackables race. There's a GC code. It's GC Alpha 4 X-Ray Zulu 9. Now, similar to how mushers come from all over the world to take part in the Iditarod, they're having cachers from all over be able to send in trackables. The Iditarod itself starts on the weekend of March 4th, 5th, so that would have been last weekend. But the trackables race doesn't start until April. So you've got some time to get your trackables in the mail and head it up there. If you want more details, let us know, and we'll make sure in our social media that we share the info for that. But if you want all those details, if you go to the GC code, they do have the mailing address and all that info in there. So check that out. Did we post it in the chat? Not yet. We're about to. Excellent.
Doing it right this very moment. There you go.
There you go. Excellent. So I'd look forward to that. That sounds like a lot of fun.
It does indeed. I would love to
I
go to
like
Alaska.
that idea of the trackable Iditarod.
I'm much more in favor of it doing an Iditarod than me doing the Iditarod because I'm old and flabby.
I would love to do it, in like an SUV in spring.
I like the idea of doing it.
Yeah.
Like maybe
Yeah.
in a helicopter.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, I mentioned earlier that we had 500 episodes behind us, and last week on 500, well, we got an email from Limax, and he said congrats on making it to 500 shows. He wishes he could have been there in person. I know some other people that said they wanted to be there in person, but we won't go there. He said he's wanted to be online. This was sent before the show. He said, I'm hoping to be online with people that couldn't make the trip. In lieu of being there in person, I figured I should probably send along some facts on the number 500. I know you were waiting for that.
Should, yes.
So, little facts about the number 500. The Roman number for 500 is D. Its prime factorization is 22 by 53, which means it only has 2 unique prime numbers. The sum of all its proper divisors is 592, which means it's an abundant number, by 92, of course. The slang term, this is bringing back to the podcast, for 500 US dollars or 500 UK, is that British pound sterling? It's a monkey.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
No.
Never heard that before either. That's interesting.
Let's see. 500 is just under the minimum distance in feet that a cache can be placed. Just 28 to go. 500 appears in 9,255 sequences on the OEIS. That's the Online Encyclopedia of Integer Sequences, of course.
Which everyone knows.
But it does not appear in a triple aught 500 number of permutations of an n sequence discordant with 3 given permutations in n minus 7 places. And he says, no, I don't know what that means either.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
You know what? I don't feel bad then.
yeah, that's right. He says, I hope you have a great show, or in this case, had a great show, and look forward to hearing how you celebrate. So I hope you enjoyed the show, Limax. We enjoyed, the chat was so active last week, and being that we were not in our normal situations, I couldn't follow it all. I saw some great comments go scooting by, and I didn't have time to get them up there, but I went back the next day and read a whole bunch of them. You guys were awesome as always.
You know, episode 500 was so much fun. I worked to clean up the audio, and I will post that soon. And I'm sorry, it's not our normal quality audio. There was an echo in the sound system that we couldn't work around. But I've done the best I can, and we'll post it. There was some great information in there, and I think you're going to enjoy the episode, even if it's not the audio quality you've come to expect with caching.
Yes. The audio technical difficulties were there, but we still had fun. The guest was great. The content was fun. The people attending were fun. Shout out to Tuba Tad, who was there and trying to help with the audio things. Yeah. They were better because you helped Tad.
Exactly. So we appreciate everyone who showed up. There was free Rock Chalk. I don't know if you knew this. There was free popcorn and soda because you were in a historic movie theater, so you had to have popcorn.
Yeah, word got out about that. Yeah, I heard about it.
And so only 100 or now 99 episodes to go, and I may just do episode 600 there. I'm looking at a podcast rig so that we can do this and do it right from this point on. So
get a nice big podcast in a box, get a big ammo can, get all your equipment in there.
I like that.
Yeah.
I was thinking like podcast in a van, but okay.
Get a little hot dog trailer and call it good.
As one does.
Yeah. All right. Well, on to tonight's show. Rock Chalk, thanks for coming back. I'm sorry we didn't see you last week. It would have been fun. You know, Brian did an admirable job, but he's no Rock Chalk.
He does okay.
I'll just let you decide whether that's a good or bad thing. But we're glad to have you back. You've been a very frequent guest here on our humble little podcast. But if somebody's just joining us for their very first podcast, can you maybe throw a little elevator speech intro of who Rock Chalk is and what do you do at Geocaching HQ?
I was hoping you could tell me what I...
We asked Brian last week, and he didn't know either.
He doesn't know. Yeah, I didn't figure he would know. So my title at HQ is Senior Public Relations Manager, which implies there are more than one, and there's not. It's just me. So part of my job is public relations. So if somebody writes in and needs statistics or needs various information for articles that they're writing or any other kind of media that might be out there around the world, and we often get requests like that, then I will try to answer those questions or track down the information or try to put them in touch with somebody in their area that can speak more authoritatively about geocaching in a specific place. So that's part of what I do. I am also a member of the community volunteer support team at HQ. And so a big part of my job is working with community volunteers, whether it be our team works with reviewers and translators and forum moderators, and we handle any of the appeals that come in. If you submit a cache and can't come to an agreement with your reviewer, our team is the one that takes a look at those appeals when they come in. And then we do a number of other projects as well. It would take too long to list all of them, but like the locationless caches, that's something that our team handled. There's just things that come up throughout the year where we either work or lead certain projects, or else are involved with them that other teams are kind of leading. So whether it be promotions, souvenir campaigns, things like that. So it's kind of our team was working recently on our mission statement, and I think part of it that we said was we're the mystery cache type of geocaching HQ, because we're kind of just a lot of different stuff that falls under our umbrella. So it's a fun team to be a part of, because I kind of feel like we're just about as close to the game as you can be, which for somebody like myself, who was a geocacher long before I came to work here, that's something that's fun for me. So that is a little bit of what I do.
Rock Chalk, we learned last week there's about 96 people working at HQ. How many people are on your team? If you could give a rough number.
Yeah, I think the number is 8. Let me count everybody in my head real quick. Cindy, Jesse, me, Ari. Okay, so it's Cindy, who you guys have had on the show before, Jesse, who of course you know, JT Coffee, myself, Martin, Emily, Tracy, Ari, Dana. 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And when you think about it, you're less than 10% of the company, but you're really the face of geocaching out and about.
Who is?
Your team. As far as when people contact the company, it's going to be one of those team members that probably see the communication first, right?
Well, the community engagement team is that group is the one that handles, like, if you write in about your account, or you're having having a bug report or stuff like that. I mean, they're the ones that really get the lion's share of the emails that come in every day. So yeah, there's a lot of us that have the opportunity to work with the community, which is super, super fun.
Well, if anybody were to look up Rock Chalk on geocaching.com, they would quickly see you are a prolific geocacher.
That's a nice word to use, I think. It makes it sound a lot more noble than it is, but
a little competitive, just a little competitive.
When you have an understanding spouse who enjoys doing it too, and you don't have kids, and you work for geocaching, so it doesn't look all that weird if the website's up when you're at the office. It kind of all combines to be something that, if you're into it the way that I am, it's certainly my favorite hobby, and has been for a lot of years.
Fantastic. Now, tonight, we're not talking about finding caches. Rather, we're actually talking about not finding them. Now, to get things started, how long would you say you would search for a cache before giving up on it?
For me, it depends on who I'm with. If I'm by myself versus if I'm with Rachel, or if I'm with a bigger group of people. She tends to be a lot more patient than I am. And so if I'm with her and we're looking for something, sometimes I'm ready to quit after 5 or 10 minutes, and she'll say, no, we need to, I'm not ready to stop yet. So, and sometimes it also depends on, like, if I'm looking for a one difficulty cache and I don't find it right away, and I see the hint and I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure this isn't here. Then then maybe I won't look for as long. Whereas, of course, if you're looking for a D5 or something closer to that end of the spectrum where you expect that it's going to take you longer. But I've always said, I mean, if I go up with a group of people, we go looking for a cache, there's several of us, it's really unlikely I'm going to be the one to find it. I just freely admit to being somebody that's easily fooled by clever caches, and who I also tend to sometimes I'll get a preconceived notion of what I'm looking for. That's always a problem for me, no matter how long I've been doing this for. I still sometimes will just come up there expecting a certain thing, and if I don't find it right away, so I'm not good at this at all. I just find a lot of them because I go out so much. That's why I find so many. But I think I have like 1,700 DNFs, so I'm also not good. So let's really admit it.
Let's talk about how not good you are. I like the direction this conversation's
You've
going.
got some personal stories, Jay, because we've gone caching together, and you probably keep a diary of all the dumb stuff I've done when we've been out caching.
Dear diary, you won't believe this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say we're on one of our caching adventures, and our spouses are keeping us from injuring each other. Maybe we get to a point where you're not able to find the cache. So what's your usual modus operandi at this point? Like you've thrown the towel in. So are you just going to forget about it, move on, or are you going to take the time to log a DNF?
Yeah, I'm pretty certain to log a DNF, especially if I feel like I've put in a fair search. Now, if I've walked up to something and it's raining and I'm just, it's the end of the day. It's just your patience isn't there. You give it a couple minutes, you don't see it right away. Okay, I might not log a DNF there if I don't feel like I gave it a fair effort. But for the most part, if I've looked for it and I just couldn't find it, and a lot of times in my log, I'll even say that. I'll say, maybe came by here yesterday, only gave it a couple minutes, but today was back here again, and I've earned my DNF, because I kind of see it that way. It's like I earned a DNF, I'm logging it. So that's how I usually do it.
Yeah, fair enough. So often the answer to all these questions is, well, it depends. Depends on weather and depends on who you're with, all those things. But in general, when you say you've given it a thorough search before you give up, do you think more about how long you've looked, or the area, the large search radius that you've looked? Is there one thing or other that you say, okay, this is my due diligence, my thorough search here?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination of that for me. It's if I spend several minutes and I've been over the same possibly, again, and the other thing is if you walk up and it's like, okay, there's one tree here in that picture that Jay had from Tri-Cities, you're in a field and there's like one thing, and I'm like, all right, there's nothing here. It's supposed to be a large. I mean, it's clearly missing. But if I'm looking for a nano on a trestle on a bike path or something, or gosh, those, like you show up at one of those cabooses, like those trains, like the old things that they'll put somewhere, and it's a nano on one, or the oh gosh, like recently I was somewhere where they had like an old tank.
I was gonna say military tank. Yes.
Oh gosh,
I've
those
done
are
those.
just the worst.
Yes,
absolutely. Or rock walls.
Nano
I'm getting to the airing of grievances already, but
nano on a tank or nano on any large metal object is about the same level of fun as nano in a cedar tree in a forest.
Yeah, we're like, the hint on the tank is magnetic. Like, all right, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Thanks for the help on that one.
Yeah.
Or you shouldn't need a hint. Oh my God. All right. So
thanks for taking the time to write that. Yeah.
But if it's like a very detailed hint, it's one tree in a field, like, all right, well, I feel pretty confident in my DNF here. Right. But, I usually will be pretty descriptive in my log too about how much effort I gave, and both for myself, because someday I might want to try again. And then for other people to know how much stock to put in it. There will be times when I'll put in there, like if I'm looking for a nano on an evergreen tree, which is another one of my kryptonites when it comes to geocaching. And I'll just say in there, I'll say, hey, take this with a grain of salt. I only find this kind of cache about 10% of the time. So that everybody knows what they're, and I'm pretty sure that people that know me well do, like you guys, you'd show up to a cache and be like, oh, he didn't find it. Who cares? That doesn't really matter. And pretty often I'll go, like I looked today since I knew we were going to talk, I went back and looked at some of my DNFs from this year, and some of them, have since been disabled or even archived. But in a number of cases, there's mine, and then there's 3 finds right after it. I mean, it happens, and I don't feel bad about it. I mean, hey, like I said, some people are better at it than others, and I'm not good. I keep saying that.
Well, and Rock Chalk, just like you, I will have it in my head what I'm looking for coming up to it. And if it's something different, I could put my hands on it and not expecting what I think ought to be there. I don't find it. So I completely understand, it's just, I've sometimes got to get out of my head.
Yeah, some people are so good at that, at trying to think of lots of possibilities. And you would think when you've been playing the game as long as we all here have, that we would all be able to do that. But I'm still, 12 years in now. And there will be times when I'll look for something for 20, 30 minutes. And then I finally find it. And I'm like, oh my, I wasn't even thinking this could possibly be what I was looking for, and how do I still not know to stop getting focused on a specific possibility? It's maddening for me.
Well, for years I've been trying to get a new acronym, into the geocaching game as a whole. Sometimes you don't have enough time to do a thorough search, right? I mean, just Carlo says the same thing. How about common notes instead of logging a DNF, like ran out of time? And that's the one I want to use is ROOT, root, right? I ran out of time. I couldn't search all the places I wanted to. He also says starting to get dark or too many muggles. So anyway, I'm just in case, you think maybe I should put that in the geocaching lexicon. Go ahead. You can take credit for it. It'd be fine because I have the podcast to prove that I wanted.
Well, and that's, I remember I saw a DNF recently where somebody just said, too many thorns, didn't want to try. I'm like, okay. I mean, technically you did not find it. So, okay. But for me personally, I think I would have said, well, I didn't really try.
Right.
If I just showed up and there were some blackberry vines and I'm like, oh, I don't want to deal with that today. Or, I'm going to have to walk down a muddy slope.
So in that case, it's a needs archive.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Be careful. We better be careful how we talk tonight. I don't want to set off any rumors. People are it's gonna be all over tomorrow. Rock Chalk says he puts needs archived on things.
Oh, hi, Brian. Why did you come by? But I mean, okay, but obviously I'm joking for the record, but we talked earlier about if you can't find something, do you log a DNF or just move on? In those cases, if you look at the situation and either you're not equipped for it, it's too dangerous, or whatever, you make a personal decision. Okay, I'm not going to try for this one. Would you say it warrants a DNF and then explaining what happened, or just don't even bother logging it?
For me personally, it's either I don't log it or maybe I do a write note. I personally don't do a DNF. Like I said, I don't necessarily blame somebody else for that because technically you did not find it. But but again, if I don't even make a concerted effort, if I get there and I say, oh, I don't have the right tool for this, which has happened before, I'll show up and. Or I get there and I realize, it's a tree climber and I just came from a catered affair and I have nice clothes on. It's like, no, that's not something I'm doing today. So I'm not going to DNF that.
You didn't wear your tree climbing tux?
I don't have one yet, but that's a good idea. So yeah, if you're in a situation where you just can't even try, you kind of have an idea of where it might be, but it's not going to happen. Then I personally, I either wouldn't log it or I might do a write note just so I kind of have a memory of that moment, but not a DNF for me there.
I like that idea. I think a write note is a good option there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there for a reason. It's good to use. And, we obviously don't, for the record, want to jump straight to the needs archived, as we were teasing about earlier. But there is another log entry called needs maintenance. When would you say is a good time to use that versus just posting a DNF or a write note?
Well, yeah, there's a number of possibilities there. For instance, if you get there and the cache is there, but it's in horrible condition, the container's all cracked, it's in bad shape, then that would be a needs maintenance. Could be if the logbook is just completely soaked. I found one of those recently where, sometimes if a log sheet is in bad shape, if it's a bison tube or something like that, I might try to help out by replacing the log. But if it's a nice, or used to be a nice, like Right in the Rain notebook or something that's all soaked now, then I don't have one of those on me probably. So that's probably going to get a needs maintenance. Stuff like that. I mean, there's when you go to our help center, there's a pretty good list of examples. But of course, it's like we said before, it's not, you can't have an exhaustive list on stuff like this. So you just kind of, figure out what situations warrant that.
Now,
Very cool. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Some of our newer listeners, or maybe they're newer to geocaching, does posting a did not find log affect their stats or maybe their reputation in a negative way?
It affects Jay's reputation heavily, but for most people, it shouldn't. I mean, as I said, I've got 1,700 of them, so I'm not embarrassed by it. And maybe it has affected my reputation, and you guys just keep that behind my back, which is nice of you. If that's the case, I appreciate it. But no, and it doesn't affect. It's not like it. I mean, wouldn't it be terrible if like you lost a fine for every DNF? I mean, that kind of thing. I mean, that doesn't happen. So it doesn't affect your stats only in that, yeah, you can look it up and see how many there are, but it's not going to negatively affect you. Now, I think if you used it incorrectly enough, that probably the word would get out that your DNFs should be taken with a grain of salt, kind of a thing. But I think for most experienced players who know the appropriate times to use it, that it shouldn't. I do think there are. It has a stigma with some people, with some players. It's not just DNF. I mean, needs maintenance, needs archive, which we're in the process of changing the names of those things. We've changed them on the app, and they'll be changed on the website soon, sometime this year. And I think that there is a stigma sometimes attached to them, and people think that, if I log a DNF, it's going to lead to the cache getting archived, and that's not the case. I mean, it would take a lot of DNFs, and then it would take a reviewer looking at it and seeing and reading them, and it doesn't automatically happen. So I would love it if that stigma were to go away, because I think there's a lot of value to the DNF. And when Jay and I first kind of we were talking about this topic, we were caching not long ago, and I mentioned that we had this. Well, it was before I got to HQ, but some of you who have been around a while might remember the DNF campaign with DNF Pride, and that was our old friend Ben Hewitt, who was the star. He was DNF, and if you Google DNF geocaching, if you've never seen it before, and we should probably put it in the show notes or something, or Google that video, because it holds up, even though it's several years old. The video is hilarious, and the message is great, and I would love it personally if we brought something like that back at HQ to kind of continue to revisit the education on DNFs and again on that whole DNF Pride thing. I thought that was a great campaign, and I hate that I lost my shirt. That was one of my favorite shirts, and maybe I can get there. You. Thank you, Brian, for doing that. The video is just awesome, and hopefully we can bring it back at some point. Maybe share it again on social. But yeah, that whole point of that campaign was to kind of in a joking way, kind of say, hey, here's a guy who has DNF'd more caches than anyone else in the world, and but here are the reasons why it's good that he logs his DNFs rather than not. So
yeah.
if you've never watched that video, think about it.
And it is a hilarious video. It was well written and always fun to see Ben and
well acted. I hate to make a compliment Ben, but
yeah.
But he and Jamie both, Ben and Jamie were both in it, and they were both. And now Jamie used to work she worked in movies before she had a little head start, but Ben was pretty good too. So
he had a good mentor. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on that topic of, because you mentioned there that there's positive value out of logging the DNFs. Let's talk a little bit about how you logging a DNF can actually be advantageous to the cache owner, because I can't say I know anybody personally for sure who's ever done this, but I've heard stories, as you know, legends go around the geocaching community, particularly at events. But I've heard stories about cache owners who'll delete DNFs off their caches because they don't want that stigma of like, oh, there's nothing wrong with my cache. You're just dumb. You can't find it. Not saying I know anybody who would do that, but what's the advantage to a cache owner in having DNFs logged on their cache?
Well, I think one of the biggest advantages is if you see a couple of them, especially in a row, that might give you a good idea that something you should check out. Certainly, if it's a cache that you wouldn't expect to get DNF'd, maybe it's a lower difficulty cache. That if you see a couple, 3 DNFs in a row, that might be and I also think that when there are, from a player standpoint, if there's a couple, 3, 4 in a row, you maybe don't even try to look. I mean, I personally will tend to filter those out if I'm going along and I see, it's been DNF 3 times and it's a 1.5 difficulty, then I'm probably not going to even mess around with it. So I think from a cache owner standpoint, it's just gives you a picture of the potential health of the cache. And that's not to say that the cache couldn't be fine. I mean, even though it has a couple of DNFs, but in that case, you check it out, it's fine. You post it under maintenance and it's all good. And then people know that everything's okay there. So yeah, I think that's the primary thing from a cache owner standpoint is to be able, you've got somebody in the field who's giving you an indication that something may be off there. And then you can decide if it's something that you need to check out.
Mm-hmm. It's exactly what West Coaster just posted. He said Greenward's checks on her cache when a DNF is logged. She'll also try to contact that cacher and help them make the find.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's nice. Great. Yeah, nobody ever helps me. I'm going to have to check out more of their caches.
Yeah.
Jeannie says, I sometimes hesitate to log a DNF because I know it brings reviewers' attention.
It doesn't necessarily, though. It's not like a reviewer gets notifications of every DNF. That's just not how it works. So if there are multiple DNFs, and that is something that there are some reviewers who will check if a cache has multiple DNFs, or multiple DNFs and or needs maintenance logs, stuff like that will affect the health score of a cache. And so a reviewer would get notified if the health score fell to a certain level. But a single DNF on a cache is not going to be something that that reviewers are going to say, oh, I need to I need to do something about this, because if they did do that, it would gum up the works so badly that they wouldn't be able to do much of anything else. So I do think that's, again, kind of going back to the stigma. I think there are people that either just through legend or what they've been told or whatever, that they think that, oh, if I do this, I'm gonna make the cache owner mad, or or the reviewer is gonna archive it, or any number of things. But one DNF isn't going to do that, and even multiple DNFs. Chances are, I mean, I know not always, but chances are multiples mean that something's up. And at that point, it's up to the cache owner to respond to it and check it out and make sure it's okay. And if it's not, do something about it. And if it's not, then the reviewer will step in and say, hey, check it out. And even then, they're going to get a chance to fix it. And if then they don't fix it, then you might be talking about archivals. But that's a long ways down the road from a single DNF. So hopefully conversations like this can help people to, kind of wipe away some of that notions stigmas and notions that they might have about it. Yeah.
I saw a question way back, and I can't remember where it was, but somebody said, what do you think when you're in a whole group if everybody posts a DNF or just one person? And I saw Monkey Cake said that sometimes when all three of us from the camp clan are caching together, only one of us will log the DNF, so it doesn't appear to be a whole string. Because like you were saying, I'm the same way. If I look and I see, guys, the last 5 logs are all DNFs, I got a little bit of time at lunch, I'm not going to look for that one today. So that's a great tip there, to just put one DNF if you're all in a group.
No, that's true. If I look at a cache listing and I see it has 3 or more DNFs, I probably am not going to go looking for it. Now if I look and see, oh, look, all those 3 DNFs were at one time. Yeah. Oh, well, maybe that's different.
And I don't want to bag on new players. That's not the point of what I'm about to say, but I do. Okay, if it's somebody with a lot of fines, that's one thing. But if I see 3 or 4 in a row from people that are just starting in the game, then that's certainly, I take that into account as well.
Right. Yeah.
Just
because they may not have the experience in the wide range of cache hides. And
totally. Yeah.
They're not there yet.
I mean, I found a light post cache not long ago, and there had been a DNF from a newer player who said, I don't know where this could possibly be, but I looked everywhere, and I totally get it. I mean, for those of us that have been around, we know where it is, but we all also probably remember that first time finding one of those, and you're like, oh my gosh, this lifts up. And so
GSM times 2 has, in my opinion, more caches that he owns than anyone should. And he says he's very dependent on people logging a DNF, so he knows he needs to go check on it.
That's a great attitude. I'm glad to see a person that has such a responsible attitude about cache ownership like that.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see now. Go ahead, Whitson.
Oh, I was just looking through the great chat here. That Dora Moore said that she once found a cache after a string of 11 DNFs. She hadn't checked in advance. And the cache owner thanked her because the cache owner was tired of having to check on it. And she says it was a great hide.
There's one close to me, and it took me a lot of trips to find this particular cache, Where Stairs Go to Die. And, I still watch that one, and there's a lot of DNFs on it. And, the cache owner says, nope, I went out there, it's still there. It's still there. I went out there, it's still there. They're like, it can't be, I looked.
I've seen a few caches like that. Yeah, I have DNF'd several caches like that.
Yeah. And Chris, in that scenario, you DNF'd each visit?
I DNF'd, I want to say the first 2 or 3. And then I thought, I'm not going to just keep piling on DNFs. Right? And that's where, so it's along the waterfront in Tacoma, right? And it's a nice day. Kids, let's go for a walk. I need 15 minutes here. I'm going to go look. Okay, kids, let's go for another walk. You're going to look again, Dad? Yeah, I'm going to look.
Go buy yourself an ice cream. Yeah.
Get out of here. You bother me.
You walk on. I'll catch up with you. I got to look here a little longer. I know it's here.
All right. Well, we've all said that you look in the app or the listing and you see, gosh, the last 3 or 4 logs are DNFs. I'm just not going to look for that one. But could posting a DNF log encourage other geocaches to search for the cache? Some people see that as a challenge. I'm going to go find out.
Interesting.
I don't know. I mean, it is fun. I mean, if you find something that somebody else hasn't, I mean, like if it doesn't happen often for me. I mean,
I'm with you. I like to cache in the group because I look for 5 minutes. I'm like, yeah, it's not here. I'm done.
Yeah, but certainly when I have had those moments, it's like, oh, cool. But it's rarely on a really difficult cache. It's more if, again, maybe a newer player came through and couldn't find it or something. But chances are, if any of you guys couldn't find it, I'm not going to come through and save the day with my find. That's for sure.
I saw this interesting comment. It kind of relates to what we're talking about here from the Supernauts and in the chat there. And they're proposing that if a cache does have several DNFs prior to your visiting it, does it sway your DNF? And they're saying this in the sense of, will you take a little less time? Like, will you maybe not put as much effort into it because it's like, all right. And I got to admit, and I think this goes to what Rockchalk was saying about, coming into a cache search with some predefined parameters in mind already. And if I'm coming at one and it's got a string of DNFs on it already, I'm probably going to go, well, there's a string of DNFs, so I'll put some time in. I'll look, I'll follow the hint, but I don't know. Sometimes though, it's like anything else. You can scroll back through the logs, and if you scroll back far enough, you might find that one winning log entry where the person says, oh yeah, I expanded my search radius by 25 meters and made the find southwest of the trail, not northeast. Like, all right.
Yeah.
I personally kind of take it as a challenge. It's like, oh, you could find it. Let me go find it for you. Now, I don't know how often that happens that I actually find it, but I like that. I take it as a challenge.
Yes, and he's much more of a bulldog on caches. When we go out together, I'll often give up first. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to pretend I'm looking at logs here while you go tramp through the blackberries a little more. Oh, we found it. Great.
Send that log over. I'll sign that for you.
Yeah, I'm happy to let you sign it at that point. You were searching in an area I wasn't. Or you were occupying an area I wasn't.
I think it also might depend a little bit on what your motivation for being out there in the first place is. I mean, like for me, it's largely about seeing new places and going to, so once I've done that, I mean, spending another 20 or 30 minutes looking for a cache that maybe doesn't have a lot of favorite points or whatever. I mean, I may or may not be motivated enough to do that if there's something else down the road that I still want to check out. If I know I only have some amount of time, or, there's just so many different factors. But whereas it's great that other people, and that's part of the reason why I like caching and, with other folks is that sometimes you'll get with somebody who's, like you said, a bulldog, and it's like, okay, I'll ride their coattails and hopefully we can get something here. But chances are I'm not going to contribute much to the final outcome.
Well, there's something to be said about caching in groups, right? Yeah. Because there's more eyeballs searching, and so you can cover a larger area. And I mean, even just between, Laura and myself, there's times where we'll both look in the same spot and one of us will find it when the other person overlooked it. I mean, there's definitely value in multiple cachers working together to try and find something, and regardless of what caching attributes that they each bring to the game.
So we've got some interesting conversation on this already. Yeah. So Sea Tribe says I've done that too. It's a challenge to find them. Doramore says, I have a caching companion who will spend hours searching rather than log a DNF, and she often eventually does find them. GSM times 2 says, here's a practice of mine. What do others think? If a person logs a DNF and it's gone,
When I check on it,
will I check on it? I'll give them the option.
Yeah.
And it's gone, yeah. I'll give them the option to change their log to a find as a reward for the DNF log.
I will say that when I'm offered that, I always decline it. I just personally feel that found it means I found it, and not that. I mean, if I didn't find anything, then it's not a find to me personally. I mean, I'm not going to disparage anybody else, but whenever I get those offers, I just kind of feel like, I'll come back and try again, and when it's there, and that's when hopefully I can log a find then.
I had pretty much the same thought. It's I have no problem with him doing that. If somebody wants to do that, that's their prerogative. Nothing against them, but I would also turn down the opportunity unless it was just some really unique, I don't know, gadget that I did all the right things, but there was just something physically wrong. I did everything, and especially if it's several states away and I'm not going to get back there, then maybe, but as a general rule, I'd say thank you, but no, I'll go find it again.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking. It was a very specific scenario.
Yeah.
That Scott had put forward there, and like somebody logged a DNF. He went and said, "Yeah, actually, you had the right spot.
Mm-hmm.
It should have been there. I've replaced the cache. I'll give you the option." And I think that's very kind of him. I would, and we have done the same as what I'm hearing from the guest in the group of hosts here, is that, I appreciate it. And it's a very generous offer on part of the cache owner for sure. And, absolutely no judgment on people's decisions. But for me, it's just, it wasn't there. So I could not have found it. So I'll come back another time. Or, if I'm traveling, then I guess I just miss out on that one.
Yeah.
Komakino says, I give freebies to out-of-towners if they DNF my cache, and it's actually missing.
And again, very generous as a cache owner, and it's the cache owner's discretion, just as it would be the finder's discretion whether they accept the offer. And I don't think there's anything wrong with either. It's just a personal preference.
Yeah, I mean, we could go on a tangent here with a conversation about logging and all that stuff. I mean, I was traveling recently, and there was a cache that the previous finder had found it. And so I went looking for it and came up to a fence, and there was construction going on. The ground zero was another 20 feet past the fence. I'm like, well, I'm not going to. So then when I actually read that log, that found it log, it was, can't get to the ground zero, but I know where it should be, so I'm logging my find. And like, you didn't find anything. Yeah. You didn't even. But again, that's kind of a pet peeve of mine, that you're just like, you didn't find it then. So I don't know. That's another episode.
Yeah.
That's more the ethics of logging, is it not?
Yeah, probably.
Well, this has been a great discussion. I really want to hear some of the airing of grievances. So I think it's time maybe we move along. Rock Chalk, thank you so much for joining us. If our listeners wanted to reach out and ask you a question and say, why'd you give up so early on not finding this cache? What's the best way to do
that? You can ping me through Message Center or, ping me through the website. I'm kind of hit and miss on social lately, but I do post some stuff on Instagram occasionally when I feel like there's something worth posting when I'm out there. So,
Or when you're baking.
Or yes. Yeah. During the winter, it's just as good of a chance that it's baking as it's geocaching, but, I've been meaning to. I did a really fun tree climbing cache when I was back in Kansas a few weeks ago, and Rachel got video of it, and I've been meaning to share the video, because it was actually, speaking of DNFs, it was a cache that I DNF'd several months ago when I was last back there, and it was at a time of year when the tree was completely full of leaves, and I went it was a tree climber, and I went way up, and I was like, I've gone as high as I can go. I can't see anything. And it was supposed to be a container that I should have been able to see. And so this time I show up, and I was like 100 feet away when I saw it was a tree's completely bare now in the middle of the winter. And I'm like, well, there it is. And so I got up into the tree, and right away I was like, this is going to be a great picture or something if she's with me. So I got down and when I came back with her later in the day, and it was a really good video. So I need to share that. So watch Geo Rock Chalk on Instagram, and hopefully I'll have it up there sometime soon. This will I'm making myself accountable to people. So
there you go.
This is now I'll feel like I need to follow through on this.
Accountability in social media. Wow, that's not a phrase you hear very often.
That's right. That's the kind of guy I am, Jay.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, a little more impressed than I was at the beginning of the podcast.
Just a little more.
Just a little.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, folks, this is the point in the podcast where we want to take a moment to thank our corporate Denali level sponsors. That's Landsharks, LANDSHARKZ.ca, and Gold Country Geotourism. Now,
and the Tri-Cities, right, Jay?
That's right. That's where you'll find them. All right. Well, Landsharks.ca is the outdoor adventure and geocaching store. Check them out online. And remember, they're shipping those online orders daily. And for absolutely amazing geocaching adventures that look a lot like being in the Tri-Cities, but even better, check out Gold Country Geotourism online at exploregoldcountry.com or on Facebook at Explore Gold Country. And folks, we want to thank all of our faithful Denali level supporters. That's Landsharks, Gold Country Geotourism, Team Squirrel, Groovy Owl, and Cachly, the geocaching app. And if you want to know more about supporting this here podcast, and you don't even have to fund the Fix Land Monkeys chair thing anymore, because I took care of that myself. But there's all kinds of things that we appreciate the support of our patrons for, and they make great podcasts keep on coming. So click that Patreon link on the cachingnw.com, a website.
Like Team Noltex did.
And Wino's Seattle.
And new patron, RAR285.
Keats 94.
Genies.
Kid Vegas 19.
The Bear Wrestler, Dora Moore.
Korsgat.
Fairwood West.
How about Logwork?
And McKennel Barb.
Not doing throwdowns, it's the Camp Clan.
Not giving up. That's Seebeck Tribe.
That's right. GeoNav Pro.
For all you spilly drinkers, it's Wet Coaster.
Utox, 2 Rocks.
Gas Station Tuna.
UDAC.
Alarobrick.
GSM times 2.
Subway Mark.
Kev MacD.
M-Nerve.
Ackerdock.
Segeho.
Sprouter.
Kitty Quest.
Whidbey Island Gal.
Skyhawker.
As Chris likes to say, just finding our way.
Peach of Washington.
J-Car.
Boomer 365.
You got both the loud.
I
and
got
the
both the
quiet.
special ones tonight, yeah.
Tick Magnet.
Limex.
CRS 98.
And Teas.
Greenwords.
MC3 Cats.
Goners.
B. Pendragon.
Flagman.
Ari. 54321.
Geocaches.
Trexer.
And LG 9000.
All right. Thanks to all the patrons. Thanks to Rock Chalk for joining us. Hit him up or hit any of us up on the Geocaching Messaging Center. You can find us all there, right?
That's
or
right.
find us on the Geocaching Trail.
That's the easier spot sometimes.
Some of us are hard to miss.
That's right. Hey, folks, thanks for taking the time to listen to this episode of Caching in the Northwest. Your support helps keep the quality shows coming. If you like the show, click the Patreon link on the cachingnw.com website. If you didn't like the show, let us know what you want us to talk about. In either case, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and more. Subscribe and give us a review. Now, if you were in a restaurant, you would tip. If you were in a live audience, like many of you were last week, you would clap. But since you're on a podcast, leave us a free, fast, fabulous, fantastic 5-star review. You could also call in 253-693-TFTC and ask us a comment. Leave us a comment, ask us a question, or help us in avenge of DNF at any time of the day or night. And of course, you can always email us at feedback@cachingandw.com. Join us every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Pacific for a live show and chat. The show is produced by Chris Umpenauer, Chris Umpenauer, Jim Paulwitz, and Jake Kennedy. It's licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license, copyright 2023 by Chris Umpenauer. Folks, I ask you to stay tuned for
The After Show.
Hey, after 500 episodes, you can make a mistake every morning.
As I say, Jim and I get confused for each other all the time. It's all right.
Oh,
right.
Did
you talked about avenging DNF in your closeout comments there. There was a lot of chat about avenging DNFs. So I thought that was kind of interesting. We didn't really talk about that aspect of DNFs in the podcast. I guess there wasn't time. We'll have to have another podcast about going back and finding them. But that's something I enjoy, is avenging a DNF. And that's an area where I would say that there's a definite value to the cache owner and the cacher in logging your DNFs, because now you, as the cache seeker, you know that is one that you missed because you got a record of it, and it'll be a little blue face on your map. But also as the cache owner, then, as we already talked about, they're able to know there's something. And we had a recent experience where there was a puzzle that Mrs. Monkey had solved, and it took a fair bit of work to solve it. And by the time we went out looking for it, we couldn't find it. So we logged our DNF, and everybody before us had found it. We're like, oh, well. And, we were looking at the logs before us, and it was like, oh, found it just sitting out on the rock. And, found it here, found it there. Like, oh, that's really, really weird. I'm wondering if this is moving around or what. But searched quite a while, and eventually it's like, log our DNF, move on. And, a while later, we saw the CO had logged a maintenance and said, yep, wasn't there. I've replaced it. Thought, great. So then it gave us a goal to get back out there and find that one. So, I really appreciate COs who will keep an eye on their logs and do that level of maintenance. We had a few people in the show tonight talking about, I think Scott was definitely one of them, but a few people talking about, liking those triggers to remind them to go and do some maintenance.
Yeah.
We might just have to talk about a show, whether what are the ethics of allowing someone to claim the DNF as a fine, based on if.
Oh, like what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Giving the seekers of the cache, if they didn't find it, oh yeah, you were in the right spot. You looked in the right spot. Go ahead and claim it, because if the container had been there, you would have found it.
Well, that very easily starts to segue into logging caches that you didn't find in general. Like, so yeah, I think you want to, I don't know, I guess that starts to border on the line of caching ethics.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm personally pretty strict about that for myself. I just, both for me and because I guess I don't want the impression to be there that, oh, maybe he doesn't find everything that he logs as found. I mean, if you see that a couple of times, you might say to yourself, well, what else does he say that I take it pretty literally. Again, the log type is found it. It's like, well, if I didn't find it, I didn't find it. It's kind of like another pet peeve of mine is you take a selfie if the webcam isn't working. It's like, well, the log type is webcam photo taken, not selfie taken. So I'm very literal about it. So if I found it, then I log a find. If I didn't, then it's something else. So again, it's like we were talking about during the show. I appreciate if somebody reaches out and says, hey, sorry, it wasn't there. If you want to log a find, go ahead. I'm like, no, if it's got my signature on it, then it gets a found it. If it doesn't, then nope, not for me.
I appreciate it. I've logged DNFs and had a cache owner respond to me within minutes through the app. hey, have you left yet?
Yeah.
I can give you a hint. It's like, oh, that's really nice. No, go ahead, give me a hint. And I've
Well,
done.
I'm happy to take a hint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have people that'll say, now, how explicit do you want the hint to be? Just,
Exactly.
you can tell me everything you wanted to. Give me a step-by-step, and
I've done
you're not
exactly
going to hurt
that.
my feelings.
I've done exactly that when I've had seekers ask me for a hint. Like, okay, do you want a gentle nudge, or do you just want a blatant go here, look here?
Yeah, hit me over the head, man.
Yeah.
So that's great. Okay. Boy, we have so much.
So much. We got like
Chat.
70 tagged comments.
70 tagged messages, yeah. That I don't think we're going to read them all, but they're all very good. This apparently is a very passionate subject too.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Hey, just want to shout out. Just Carlo commented that he became a patron last week, so I guess we just haven't had a chance to get him into the rotation there yet. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes,
I did see that. Thank you, Carlo. I've been spending my free time this week editing last week's podcast, trying to get it to sound as best as I can.
There you go. And UDAC just wanted to rub it in a little bit more for Rock Talk and say that it was great to see Brian join last week's show in person, and it was wonderful. I didn't bother coming and showing up for our 500th episode. It's too much work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work to do a 500th episode. Let me tell you.
It's okay, Lenny Monkey. I ate 2 bags of popcorn. Just
thank you. Appreciate you doing that for me.
What was the event like an hour and a half before the podcast? And we spent that entire time setting up and getting ready for the podcast because we didn't get in much before the event went live. So it was interesting. At one point I said, this is why we don't do a lot of a live podcast, because it's an incredible amount of work.
It can be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We make it look easy sitting in a home studio that we've spent hours crafting just so.
We do. Starcacher posted something here, and I'm curious about this. So maybe somebody who's a bit more of an expert on the how the website and the tools work can explain this to me. But Starcacher says, after posting a DNF, I put a watch on the cache. I hate it when the next couple of geocachers find it, especially when they are newer cachers. So if you DNF a cache, the system doesn't automatically put a watch. You would have to then go in. So you would have to actually manually put the watch on it yourself. Okay.
Yes.
Add it to your watch list.
All right. Yep. I was not clear how that works. So thank you. I've learned something new.
Yeah, I have done that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's a cache I really want to go back and find. I'll put a watch on it.
I do that just to see if they put more descriptions or maybe post a picture that will show, oh, look, they're standing right in front of that log. I know I spent a lot of time looking at that log. So.
All right. Tons more in there. Anything in particular you guys wanted to pull out and speak to?
This one is interesting from BC Rock Crawler. When you're in a group and you've all been looking for, let's say, a magnetic on a very large piece of equipment, and you find it, how long do you wait to say, got it?
That depends who you're with.
Yes. Usually quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, Mrs. Monkey now knows that if I ask questions and say, so what color was the magnetic nano? Did it say what color it was? Then she's like, he's found it. Sure. Did it say it was black?
Yeah. I've tried to sign them and replace them, but
that's even sneakier.
Somebody has noticed, like, he's awfully quiet. What's going on?
He's usually not quiet. He's being really quiet. What's going on? That's good. Good question, Rock Crawler. I like it.
Yes. Okay. I think that's enough. I mean, there are so many here.
We could go for another hour, but yeah.
Go for another hour just answering all these questions or reading through the comments. So thank you so much, all of you who listen live. and comment. We love it. That's what makes
Mm-hmm.
the show so much fun for us and gets us to do this each and every week. So thank you so much. Hey, you know what? Until next week, get out and get caching in the Northwest.